Yeah, because I'm resident of Collinwood for YouTube. Joel says, I'm joined by Christine Pierce, Cara Tillitz from Between the Shadows and Dark Shadows podcast, and the amazing, always, Patrick McCray, the author of the Dark Shadows Daybook and Dark Shadows Daybook Unbound. We're here to talk House of Dark Shadows and the difference between House and the series, really. So, ladies first, what do you ladies think is the biggest difference between the House of Dark Shadows movie and the 1966 series?
I think it's obvious that Barnabas is the most obvious difference.
Definitely.
Definitely. It was polar opposite of what he was in the series, for sure. He just went full on non-reluctant vampire.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Barnabas, in the show, he was so human, obviously, who just unfortunately came under this curse because he scorned the wrong woman. And House of Dark Shadows, I mean, he seemed reluctant for maybe 2 seconds of it. And then he kind of relished in being a vampire. He relished in the fact that he could change Maggie into Josette, or, he killed, without a thought. He killed a member of his own family, a couple members of his own family. And in the show, he absolutely, only if it's absolutely necessary, which I don't think that it ever became necessary in the show. But in the movie, it was like, well, whether it was necessary or not, I mean, with Carolyn, I feel like he could have just kept biting her, kept putting her under his power, but he didn't. He killed her and turned her.
Didn't seem to care about it either.
Yeah, I mean, Barnabas. You could kind of relate to him in the series, in the movie. He was almost purely a villain, I think.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Patrick, what do you think, buddy?
Oh my. Well, the television series had taken this vampire and made him into a loyal, brave, humane, often frightened, occasionally wise, never say die, ironically, kind of guy. I mean, a real hero who accepted the mantle of looking after his family, often with extraordinary abilities, very seriously. And he became this wonderful dark uncle for the kids of the country. And what a beautiful, interesting person to have on the team. And what a just marvelous contribution to culture that was for kids to have. You've had John Wayne as a role model and all these other TV characters who solve their problems by punching people, and then you have this, which is entirely different, and he's navigating this complex emotional landscape, but in a way that I think kids could understand and would serve as a really, in many ways, very empowering, very positive figure. And so Dan Curtis kind of looked at all of this stuff written down and said, make me the opposite. And so we got Barnabas as he appears in House of Dark Shadows, which is kind of like making a Muppet movie and just the Muppet inside out, cutting it open and just having a hand sticking up.
Yeah.
It's like, well, yeah, that's really what it's like, but I don't want to see a hand. I want to see Miss Piggy. And that's what I want with Barnabas, Miss Piggy.
Yeah.
I agree. And I think Dan Curtis openly said it that way too. He's like, we're not going to do it that way this time. It's going to be a horror.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I think there's a lot of ways to I keep thinking of, in a weird way, Friday the 13th, when Victor Miller, I don't think, saw the large cash grab that was coming with the franchise after the first movie, and he wanted nothing to do with it after that, after the first film. With Dan, that's the biggest difference. I think he saw how big this product was, and he saw how valuable Jonathan's Barnabas had become.
absolutely.
And not only did he want to do one movie with one movie with Barnabas, he wanted to do two. Jonathan Fred, well, he wasn't having that, but which I don't mind.
I would have said, Jonathan, we love you, baby. How many people have played Dracula? I think Christopher Lee's doing pretty well at it right now, and I'm sure with enough work, Mr. Frid, we could find our Christopher Lee, Mr. Lugosi.
Certainly.
You want to find our Christopher Lee? We can do it.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Yeah.
And I think too with this, like the series, we had you felt for Barnabas even in the very beginning when he first really came out and he's talking to Josette's portrait. I think to me that's where Jonathan won me over right away, like as his character, because it's like, wait, this guy's got every reason to just rip everyone's throats out,
Yes.
and he's not, and he doesn't sound so much angry as so much as he sounds hurt.
Yes, definitely.
And I think that's one of the best things about the series, that the writers, whether they meant to or not, they say they didn't know where they were taking Barnabas, and I'm not here to doubt them, but I think maybe subconsciously they were sort of leading him that way towards the sympathetic vampire, because I don't think you write dialogue for a portrait of a conversation you're having with a portrait of a dead woman and have it be that poetic,
Mhm.
Absolutely.
not and not come across as sympathetic. I think that's
Yeah, I mean, Joel, here's the deal. I think with that, if I may,
sure.
You're dealing with something that is part and parcel of the soap opera medium,
Yeah.
which means we have to fill up as much airtime as possible with as little as possible that would push the plot unchangeably forward. And so this means it is a clear invitation to the dance for monologuing. And so if you start talking about, this vampire talking about his past, something wistful, something lost in this old house that was already established, with this ghost of Josette already established, wow, that just makes its own gravy. Yeah, I don't think we would have gotten that if this had been in another medium.
Yeah.
I think you're right, because I think that opening dialogue with Barnabas and Josette's portrait when he goes down to the old house in the show, I think that sets the tone for not only Barnabas but what this vampire is going to be like for the rest of the show. Like I think if he had gone in there and say, you didn't win and this is my time now and but he went in there and he was so sorrowful. I was a Collins, why didn't you protect me? But I'm free now and I'm alive and I'm gonna soak up whatever this life is, whatever it turns out to be. I mean, he didn't start out with a plan. He came out of the coffin. He's like, okay, well, I guess I'm just gonna try to live, and whatever that means, instead of being vengeful and being, like a villain would be, like I would imagine he was trying to be in House of Dark Shadows. Instead, we get this very sorrowful, very hurt, very like feeling like he was betrayed almost, because he's, we didn't, in 1795, when we go back, we didn't get very much time as a vampire before Joshua locked him away. I mean, we saw like the baby vampire and didn't really, he didn't know what he was doing. So now he's come out of the coffin almost 200 years later, and now he's really going to get into this and see what it's like. But he's learned so much. But I don't know. I think that first opening dialogue with him just set the tone for the vampire show.
Well, think about this. To support that idea, think about this. If you have a revenge story, it ends when your main character gets revenge, and there's not really any place you want to see that character go. It's a quest that ends in a terminus. But if you have a story about long lost love and about trying to recreate that which was lost and so on, well, that's a journey that has no real destination, because at least at a certain point you can't go back in time.
Right.
So naturally, that's where your storytelling fuel is going to come from.
Very true. Very true. Very clever move on the writer's part.
There are some similarities. We have a lot of pretty much almost everybody from the cast in the movie. We have Jen Bennett, we have Lewis Edmonds, we have Catherine Lee Scott, Humphrey Allen Alstrado. Thayer David, you have Grayson Hall, Don Briscoe. The list goes on and on and on.
You even have
Jonathan
the guy
Fred,
who played,
obviously.
you have the guy who played King Johnny Romano.
Yeah.
Holy
Yeah.
cow.
Yeah, he's at the end. He comes to
He played
Jeff.
Jack McBud. No, he doesn't play him.
He comes up to Jeff Clark and he goes, Mr. Collins wants to meet you here, and he's like this sailor looking dude with this like toboggan, and it's like, hey, that's the guy who played Johnny Romano.
I did not pick up on that till literally just now when you said it. I'm like, holy cow, that was him.
It's a quick scene too, so it's hard to like, because there's by this time so much has gone on in the movie. It's like you're just waiting for the climax.
Right.
So,
As always.
yeah, right. Oh my god! So, what did you all think of that? They bring the cast from the series to the big screen, ladies.
I loved it. I mean, they were excellent. Like they're acting on the show, like their one takes that they were able to have. When now they finally get to record and have a chance to change it, like and be better, even though they were freaking excellent on the show with their one takes.
Yeah.
I think that's what made them so excellent, is that they had to get it in one shot.
Yeah.
But I can imagine how exciting it was for them to be able to record like this and be able to redo the scene over again and have a chance to really make it what they wanted to make it.
Well,
I thought it was great.
You notice Jonathan Frid doesn't mess up any of his lines in the movie because they were able to stop and relight them and reshoot it, and I bet it was gold for him. But I guess when I first watched it, when we first watched it as kids, I hadn't finished the series yet. You know, I watched it kind of in the middle, and so I was confused. I'm like, okay, well, why is that way? But when I watched the whole series and then watched the movie, you know, I guess I had an expectation of how I thought it was going to be, and it was kind of like that, but different, you know. And so I guess I don't know. I loved it. I think it was great, and I have an appreciation for it for sure, and I love it. It's still one of my favorite movies and still on the spooky list for Halloween, you know. But I definitely think, and I feel like, you know, people who are watching it live and people who are watching it come out, I think they had expectations of how they thought it was going to be, like based on the show, but it wasn't really anything like the show. I mean, like the characters were the same, but it was totally different. It was your typical slasher vampire movie.
Straight up horror,
you know?
like honestly Dark Shadows should be.
Right. It wasn't this, you know, mythical, magical, romantic tragedy that the show was. It was purely horror. So but I dig it. I'm here for it.
Patrick, what did you think?
Grayson Hall once said, Sam, put down that drink. But she also said, I don't know. Grayson Hall once said, Dan Curtis, I know your secret. And he said, what? You know, hurling a golf club at her. And she said, you cast people with enormous faces and wonderful voices. And of course, that anecdote has to be true because it's true. He did. And so these are people absolutely made for the big screen.
Absolutely.
You know, and so, you know, Louis Edmonds up there or you know, Thayer David or any of these other figures. Well, yes, it feels natural as a movie. And honestly, I think it's maybe a little clumsy in its construction. It's very difficult to tell like how much time has gone by, you know, except that the dialogue is sort of painfully engineered to remind us. But it doesn't matter because the actors are so wonderful in this.
Yes.
And are so just, I mean, like Joan Bennett grew up in front of a movie camera.
Yeah.
So, you know, they're so made for it that it in some ways makes the movie maybe better than it would be with an average cast.
Absolutely.
I say that.
I agree 100%.
I'm glad that they got the biggest part of the cast from the series to this movie. A lot of them, I think, are playing more the characters by namesake. Some
Yeah.
of them are a bit different. Like for Maggie Evans, we don't hear that her dad's Sam Evans and that he was a painter. That's not even mentioned in this movie. And really, there's no reason for it to be mentioned either.
Exactly. It's like a quick wrap up of everything. Like
There's no mention of David's mother. Thank God. I love Laura. God.
I wouldn't too much, I think, for this movie.
yeah.
It's like, oh, and by the way,
Right.
right? So we get John Carlin as Willie Loomis. I love how in this one, he's not a thief. He literally is working for the Collins family.
Right.
There's no Jason McGuire in this movie. Dennis Patrick is playing Sheriff George Patterson.
Oh, thank God,
I
by the
love
way.
I
I think Jason would have been too much for this movie, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're trying to keep it an hour and a half, and there's only so many things you can leave in the movie.
I have so many questions. I don't know where to start from here. So here's I'll give you guys mine, and then I want to ask, if you could have changed the hero of this movie, who would you have made the hero? Who would have staked Barnabas, basically?
I'm like thinking through the whole movie now. Oh my God.
I would have liked to have seen it be David Collins.
Ooh.
David Collins from the series, because David Collins in the movie is just your tortured child. You know,
Yeah.
he's not the
He will
clever.
scream Chicken Little was right
Yes,
and drive the steak
I-
home.
because this is David's legacy, and David is smart enough to see, if he, because eventually they knew what Barnabas was. It all came out in the open, which was also different from the series. Like, they didn't know that. Nobody ever knew that Barnabas was a vampire. Only a select trusted few.
Yeah.
But when David found out that Barnabas was a vampire and messing with his legacy and messing with his family name, I would have liked to have seen David, and trying to save the family name, trying to save the family legacy.
Cara?
That's a good
Yeah. I
one. Like I just think
hold on, what? Your voice. Jewel,
because
what do you want us to do?
Oh,
I'm scared.
I asked.
I don't know these strange feelings. Yeah, I know. I'm sort of like cruising through a Buc-ee's right now. So, can I say something about who I think should have staked Barnabas?
yeah.
Sure.
I don't want to step on anybody's, schlemazel. I think David's a good idea. If David had been the one to release him, like one place David shouldn't be exploring, or what, be on Quentin's sock tour, and the things he would learn. I think that would be fine, given that David's not involved with it up to that point. Willie, I think ultimately having Willie take that level of responsibility is it has a symmetry to it.
I was gonna say Willie too, honestly. Like, he is and always will be the closest, and Ben Stokes was prepared to do it. He was. He didn't want to. Willie was just like that, I think. And if anybody's gonna put Barnabas out of his misery, I think it should have been Willie.
Yeah.
You're
saying 1995, I'd have said Ben, but
Yeah.
I have to investigate. I'll be back.
I think something I would have I think having Willie do it was cool.
Yeah.
But something I would have loved to see, just again, this is a Dark Shadows movie. Let's be even more different. Willie tells he doesn't tell Maggie what Barnabas is, but he wants to, and you could tell. There should have been that moment where you just see Willie. I can't anymore, and you don't really know where he is. You just see him. Looks like he's sitting somewhere, and then he finally says says what he is, but we pan out. We don't hear it, but we look up and see who does, and it's Reverend Trask. It's Jerry Lacey.
Mhm.
And I think Jerry Lacey could have been the one who could have been your hero of this movie.
Right?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
I think so too.
It's sort of a weird twist on Van Helsing because the difference would be Jerry Lacey's Trask didn't know about wasn't. Again, he finds out that there's a vampire because everybody it gets told that Carolyn's a vampire.
right.
Carolyn gets staked. So, but to find out who the real vampire was when everybody finds out about it, the first person who would have found out about it would have been Trask because Willie would have confessed it to him. I think they could have did that. I love David's a great idea. Willie, I think the way they did Willie staking Barnabas was smart.
Yeah,
Like you could tell this was a redemption time for Willie.
Mhm.
yeah, absolutely.
So
I
I
agree.
agree.
And Willie being that unsung hero in the movie, I think was brilliant, honestly, because Willie was so tortured by him, and so but also so loyal to him, no matter how tortured he was, no matter how much he got the crap beat out of him by Barnabas, he was still loyal. And at the end, Jeff Clark's down for the count under the spell, and here's Willie to save the day. I think that was genius in the movie. I thought it was great.
Yeah.
it's
I mean,
worth
that carried over to the movie. I mean, Willie's always been the unsung
Yeah.
hero, I think,
Yeah.
in the series and in the movie, honestly.
He's been Barnabas's hero. He's been Maggie's hero.
Victoria.
Willie was a hero in the movie. Like after he got done being cringy and gross and
Yeah, accepted his fate, basically.
accepted his fate, but what was always that one that was unseen. And
really became, if it wasn't Julia, Willie became the one that Barnabas really listened to,
Yeah.
even though he acted like he didn't.
Yeah, still
didn't
tried
respect
to
his
belittle him.
opinion, but he did.
yeah, exactly.
So Willie got Barnabas to stop a lot of times.
Yeah.
So
I don't think I agree with you, Jill. I don't think that Barnabas would have killed Maggie just because, he acts tough, but I don't think he would have done it. But I really think what Willie said to him right before he was going to kill Maggie had a lot to do with that.
and he just let it go.
Just let it go. Kept her prison and killed her. But
in the series, it's interesting to watch John Carlin's Willie Loomis compared to the movie. Because with a movie, again, you don't get a lot of time with character development. With a series, you get a shitload of time. But
absolutely.
and with the biggest difference too is with John Carlin's Willie Loomis in the series, we know what he starts off as. He starts off as this no good thief who's
Yes.
working for this no good con man.
Right.
I love the fact that they completely ditched that here in this movie.
I agree.
And, because they could have went rinse and repeat, but no, they don't. And I think that's one of the best decisions they made in this movie
I agree.
by having Carlin's Loomis being this disgruntled Collins employee. Because
Right.
let's be honest, who wouldn't be a disgruntled employee for?
I was just gonna say, completely believable.
Mhm. Yeah.
I mean, unless you're Mrs. Johnson and you're making the boiled dinners,
Yeah.
there's that.
Yeah.
I love that.
I didn't like that uncomfortable cringy that they made Willie in the beginning of the series.
Yeah.
I didn't like that. But
I bought Willie more as a disgruntled employee, to be honest. I did.
yeah.
I mean, Willie at the beginning of the series versus Willie in the movie are completely two different people. I think, I really do, and I think I buy the disgruntled employee.
I mean, look at Matthew Morgan. Come on.
So he was like a Matthew Morgan.
So
It's
Yeah.
it's crazy to think that because when you think about Willie Loomis and where he entered, this is a guy who will kill for money.
mhm.
Yes.
He has no problem pulling a knife to kill. So when you think about that cringe character, it's an edgy character as hell because it's not a character you're really rooting for.
Right.
And especially the way he womanizes Victoria and Carolyn, it is creepy. I agree with you. But that's what makes the character all the more. You're waiting for this character to get his comeuppance in every way.
Yeah.
And
I don't think that Carolyn would have pulled the gun on Willie as a disgruntled employee, even though he was still, you know, coming up on Maggie just a little bit, you know, but not in the way that he was when he was being played at the beginning. I can never remember that guy. It always escapes me when I try to bring up the actor's name when it's first Willie. It's James something, I think. I just can't remember.
It's James Hall.
Thank you, James Hall. See, I was on the right track.
Yeah, it's James Hall. This is how I remember it. James Hall, John Carlin. J-H-J-K.
Okay, J-H-J-K. Awesome. Okay. No, that's...
I will message you both later with the names. I promise.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Anytime. I was trying to think of a question. With Willie, Willie he's a disgruntled coworker. So that means Dennis Patrick has to play a different role. And he plays Sheriff George Patterson as opposed to playing Jason McGuire, the con artist. So we've seen some iterations of George Patterson in the series. Now we're seeing a completely different George Patterson in the movie and played by Dennis Patrick. What did you think of that?
I love how versatile he is, because we've talked about this before, and I can't believe I missed it, that he was friggin' Carolyn's dad. I don't know how I missed it. It was the mustache and the gray hair.
And the white hair, yeah.
But I love his versatility, and I love that. I love Dennis Patrick, so I'm glad they found a place for him.
Yeah.
And I think Sheriff Patterson was perfect.
Oh,
honestly.
yeah.
I think it was a perfect role for him.
I mean, I think Sheriff Patterson in House of Dark Shadows, he was a very seasoned policeman. You know, he had probably seen a lot, even in his duties in a small town. You know, he probably could play anyone like a fiddle, talk anyone down without actually having to arrest them or cite them. That was what Sheriff Patterson and House of Dark Shadows reminded me of. Sheriff Patterson in the series, though, he was kind of he was younger than, you know, Sheriff Patterson in the movie, but he still knew how to get some answers. He still knew how to do this. I'm trying to think of the right way to say this, because I do think that I did like Sheriff Patterson in the series, but I don't think I think that he was more gosh, I can't even think of the right way to say this. Like he is very loyal to the Collinses, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And Sheriff Patterson in the movie did hit me that way, but not the way.
He just seemed like somebody else that was bought.
Maybe bought,
in a way.
but loved Elizabeth, respected Elizabeth so much that, you know, even when she called and said, I murdered someone, you know, he came up and she was like, you gonna cuff me? And he was like, no. And it was just, I don't know. It seemed like Sheriff Patterson was more of a friend to the Collinses than maybe Dennis Patrick's Sheriff Patterson was. I don't know, though, because both George and both Liz and Roger were like, we'll see you to the door, George. And he's calling them by their first name, you know, Elizabeth and Roger. So I don't know. It just seemed like maybe Sheriff Patterson, but maybe 20 years from Sheriff Patterson that we saw on the show. That was very long and convoluted. I apologize. I was trying to get a point across. I'm not sure if I got it across. So I apologize.
No, don't apologize. There's nothing to be sorry for on this podcast, especially when we're talking Dark Shadows. With Dana Elker as Sheriff George Patterson in the series, I think the biggest difference there is George Patterson is not our first law enforcement in the series.
Right.
It's Constable Jonas Carter.
Right.
And I always think that Jonas left because Jonas is the guy who investigates the bleeder valve case.
Right.
And, you know, that's not Patterson. Patterson comes after that.
Right.
And because Patterson is the one who's investigating Bill Malloy's death.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think what shook Jonas to the core is the fact that there was this little kid, and it also shook Bill Malloy too, that there was this little kid who tried to kill his dad.
Yeah.
And I think he wrote that down to George. who he knows who's going to replace him, and said,
Mhm.
that family, there's something there. And when Patterson comes aboard, he does something too during the case. When Burke Devlin says, I want you to reopen Bill Malloy's case, he goes, I never closed it.
Yeah.
The thing that gets people to talk is when everyone thinks you closed the case.
Exactly.
Exactly.
It's very underhanded, but it's also very Wild West in a sense. Like,
Yeah.
you
Absolutely.
can see a Western sheriff doing the same thing.
Definitely.
And with the series, you got to see that kind of development. As with the movie, I think the biggest difference with the movie is Dennis Patrick. You're right. His mustache with the dad, it's very Gray Squirrel. Like, just envision a Gray Squirrel on Dennis Patrick's face for
Yeah.
Paul Stoddard, and you will get the picture. But with Sheriff George Patterson, I like the fact that he's like, "Oh, I'll talk to you later, Liz." Like, he's got this schoolboy crush on Liz, and it's
Yes,
like,
thank you. Thank you. Yes.
like, dude, can you, like, don't get me wrong, Joan Bennett's a beautiful woman.
Beautiful.
So I buy it, but I'm like, bro, like,
There's
she's
no
not into you. Like, get over it. Like,
Oh my God.
The window is closed.
Yeah.
Ain't nobody getting in there.
But when Julie was watching this, she goes, you see that right there? I'm like, yeah. She goes, that's what desperate looks like. And I'm like, oh, really? She goes,
Sure.
yes. I'm like, okay. Like, I'll take your word on it. But so I love the fact that you have this little schoolboy crush going on. But he is very veteran. He's an older George Patterson. It's something we didn't really get to see in the series. And that's the thing too with the movie. This is someone who's been around forever in this town. He's a staple in that town in the movie, and you can just tell it too. And he's very matter of fact. He's to the point. And I think what makes him a good lawman too, what makes Patrick a good lawman too in this movie, is the look on his face when he sees Carolyn. I think is so powerful. He does a really good job. Dennis Patrick's a great actor, but it's so believable because again, the thing the movie is bringing to life in a 2-hour time, is these characters' reaction to the supernatural.
Mm-hmm.
Where we're in a series, we're getting the long, greatly appreciated, drawn out experience of everyone's individual experience and together experience at times too. And if you find out and happen to live about it, in the movie, a lot of people who do find out about Barnabas end up dead. Half the cast, but George Patterson is somebody who you don't hear die. You don't hear about him dying, which is interesting. So, let me see. What's my next question? Oh, what's something in the movie that shocked you most compared to the series? Sorry.
I was actually no, I'm gonna take that back. I'm gonna take that back because it wasn't shocking, but go ahead.
The fact that they actually made another Collins of the current family a vampire. I found that just because we didn't get that in the show. You know, we another Collins didn't become a vampire. You know, I mean, he bit members of his family, of course. You know, we got Carolyn, Millicent and we got Carolyn, but in the movie, Carolyn became a vampire, and then Roger became a vampire at the very end. That's I'm like, really? And Professor Stokes, who is supposed to be this baddie, you know what I'm saying?
That broke my heart.
That broke my heart too. I mean, I thought, you know, Professor Stokes in the show was always the smart one. He was always the one who never got afraid. He was the one who always had the answers. I always outsmarted him. And then to see Professor Stokes become a vampire, oh, game over.
I was kind of headed towards that way because I was actually shocked that he actually killed a family member.
Yeah.
Not one, but two. Like, I was actually pretty shocked that he went that far.
Yeah.
And
it's funny because a friend of mine, John Philip Betancourt, shout out to him. He's not watched this movie yet, and he's watched the series, but he's never watched the movies. And the reason is simplistic. He's a writer, so he doesn't want to copy anything.
Fair.
And he said that's the one thing when he was writing Return of Dark Shadows. He goes, I didn't want to copy. And I was just like, and he goes, so what's the movie like? He's like, I said, you know when Carolyn sides with Barnabas and he bites her, you know? He goes, yeah, they have this weird relationship. I said, well, in the movie they turn that up to 150 degrees.
yeah.
As Bobby Lagose put it, House of Dark Shadows is Dark Shadows on steroids.
It is.
It is in a way.
It is.
And I like the fact that, because what shocked me most, because when you watch a series and then you're watching a movie that's based off the series, in a sense, you're like, well, what will shock you? Because you've seen it by this time. You've seen a lot in the series. By the time they shoot this movie, they're in parallel time.
Right.
So when they do the movie, the thing that shocked me most, and as somebody, we've all watched Dark Shadows from the beginning. We all saw how morbid David could be. But even in the movie, when he's playing ball in the abandoned pool, near the abandoned pool, and it's after Carolyn's death, and he says, if I catch, and his voice is echoing. I love the way they shoot this and the sound they get. If I catch Carolyn isn't dead, I'm like, oh my fucking God.
That scared the crap out of me as a kid. Oh my gosh. I had nightmares for weeks about it.
And then you think, okay, like, what are they gonna do here? Because then he falls and knocks himself unconscious. He falls trying to get his ball. And he wakes up, it's dark time. And then you hear Carolyn, it's like, oh, Jesus Christ, run, kid. I was not expecting them to pull this little scare tactic at you at this point in the movie. I'm thinking, you could say, well, it's a little too calm, but any scene with David, movie or not, movie or series, it's never calm. So it's like him being there is not calm. His voice echoing to me and him saying, I'm thinking, and this is some pretty morbid stuff, even for David. Yeah, he tried to kill Roger in the series, but who wouldn't try to kill Roger in the series? I like the fact that they do this little scare move here with Carolyn coming at him, and he runs, he takes off. And then there's the scene at the dinner table where you have Elizabeth, you have Dawn Briscoe's character, you have Carolyn, you have Thayer David, you have Grayson Hall, and they're all sitting there, and he comes in and he just he starts talking. I saw Carolyn, and the look on everyone's face, Elizabeth, and now the two that aren't sort of shocked is Thayer David and Grayson, because Thayer David predicted this.
Right.
Great build up to this scene. But it still shocks you how they do it. And the way they do it is shocking to me.
Yeah.
I agree.
I mean, we got to remember, David isn't really scared of anything.
Yeah.
Like, you can't scare this kid.
Even in the movie. I mean that deleted scene, would have showed how morbid David was.
Yeah.
With him hanging in the closet and scaring the crap out of Maggie and causes her to want to leave.
Yeah.
I mean, if we had that, I think David would have been mostly unchanged from the series. But because we didn't get that scene, David was pretty unchanged from the series.
Right.
Like, he was changed, like he wasn't quite as morbid. But I think if we'd have gotten that deleted scene, David would have been unchanged, honestly.
Yeah.
Because that scene right there would have shown the morbidity of David. It just would have. But
I love the fact that And it makes a lot of sense that if something was to scare David, it would be his basically sister.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Coming back from the grave
to get him.
Stay away from me, you're dead.
Yeah.
Oh,
nothing
yikes.
scared David like that. And
no.
it's kind of refreshing and different to see that, and I liked it.
And he's back. Hi, Patrick. But I mean, I think even the grown-ups shirked him off, knowing that nothing scared this child.
Yeah.
You know, and he comes running in. I've seen Carolyn, she's alive, and they're like, get out of here with that, you know?
But it's like the boy who cried wolf, though. He's always pulling crap.
I mean,
and, I don't know.
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. I've got some Bluetooth things stuck in my head. Yeah, but you know, that's such a touching moment between Roger and David.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's worth it for that. You never see that coming. That's one of those great moments the TV show never really gave you. Not as powerfully there.
Agreed.
So I really treasure that about that scene.
Yeah.
He just jumped right in. He knew exactly what we were talking about. I love it.
More than once.
What did you, Patrick? What did you think about Dennis Patrick as Sheriff George Patterson?
Wasted. I'm glad he's in there. He looks like Trelane from Squire Gothos. He looks like William Campbell.
Sorry.
It's kind of nice that Dennis was in this while I guess he was waiting to make Joe or something, which was his big hit around this time. I thought he was fine. I have a lot of attachments to Dana Elcar, who I think is the real Sheriff Patterson, I suppose. And so I miss seeing him.
Yeah. It's funny. Richard Dean Anderson was in Pittsburgh in April, and a fan had asked him about if Dana Elker ever talked about his time on Dark Shadows when he was doing MacGyver, and Richard Dean Anderson said yes quite often. That
really?
Dana Elker would talk. That Dana Elker would talk about how they would film the episodes of Dark Shadows and how they would do it. And he was reminded Richard of his time on a soap opera and how different they would film the soaps. And it was really interesting to hear that from Richard Dean Anderson on an interview. So it was cool. I watched the video on YouTube. I'll see if I can find it for y'all and send it to you.
You know what you can find on YouTube is Dana Elkar's nude scene from The Nude Bomb, where he plays the chief from Maxwell Smart. So, Joel, that's what we need to be following. And as Maxwell Smart and the girl in the movie, it's not 99, it's somebody else, go running away in a row. EM appears 3 times, and you'll never guess what it's covering. Now that's filmmaking. If Ian Curtis had managed to end House of Dark Shadows, maybe we'd be talking about it to this day. End it like that. A nude bomb going off, and Willie and Sheriff Patterson and that big suspiciously well-fed zombie are running from the camera. Wouldn't that be great?
Oh my gosh.
Eric in Chattanooga. Ben Morgan was his name, and Love was his game. And he appeared more than once. He just couldn't stay out of that cemetery. And he was a wrestler. He was a big Ben Morgan. Yeah.
Somebody needs to bankroll this.
I thought about going to Chattanooga many times to find his grave. And I've got some good leads.
Cool.
Yeah. And compare real life, whatever. Wave the green flag and wait.
So we've talked about this one before a bit too with Barnabas, that instead of kidnapping Maggie like he did in the series, he actually courts her in the series. He begins dating her in every way. So what did
That's
you
just
think about?
uninspired. That's a very uninspired kidnapping. He's just too lazy to kidnap her in this. It's too much planning, too much work. Who knows what Willie will be doing with the upholstery? He's got contractors in and out. So dinner at a place with a red and white check tablecloth and those horrible Pizza Hut red plastic glasses. The tone for it is so awful that, that's like going to Sizzler for Maggie. That's something special and magical.
Like, you're the richest man on Sesame Street and you took her there. I'm just saying.
No wonder it takes a while. And it's like, okay, I gotta break out the antiques. Fine.
Oh my god.
So your fish deliver from Uber Eats if we get them.
From Uber Eats.
See now, if it was Maggie Evans from the series, I truly believe Maggie would have been like the sassy version, like, this is where I want you to take me, right here to this restaurant, not that crappy place over there.
Well, she needs to take her to that place where Joe gets his baby food. Because that's what she accused him of eating.
Mm,
True.
Remember that?
yes.
Yep.
Maybe we need to find a restaurant that serves baby food.
There's
the most
big-
ludicrous
Yep.
shit on the series.
What a sass master.
I know. If I was Joe, and if I'd been the director, I just would have left the camera on Joe Haskell for a long time, just doing sort of a Jason Bateman, where he's trying to figure it out.
That one made me laugh. That was one of those Maggie quirks that made me laugh. Find somewhere that serves baby food.
And the fact that she's saying it in her worst outfit, which is like, it's not that smart outfit, this parallel time. Oh no. This is like an oven mitt.
Mhm.
It's like the schmata that the hand from Hamburger Helper would dress up in. And he's like ordered other gloves and is wearing them like Buffalo Bob, but wants to complete the ensemble.
So what did you think about Barnabas dating Maggie in the movie compared to the series?
I mean, I guess since there was no Victoria Winters, I mean, that's kind of what he did with her in the show instead of Maggie.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely been more effective than just kidnapping her, I guess. I mean, just wine and diner. Like, might have worked a little better.
Yeah.
I mean, this was one of those very short flashes of Barnabas trying to be human.
Thank you, yeah.
Yeah. It was, mostly in the movie he was a villain.
It's not the only time we really got that.
Yeah. I mean, he goes to Julie and says, "How quickly can you cure me? Because I want to ask Maggie to marry me." It wasn't so I can turn her, and
Yeah.
I mean, in the show, he wasn't trying to marry her; he was trying to turn her,
Mhm.
and it was kind of like the role was switched. That was the part of the show where we saw Barnabas as a villain, and when he had actually been, a reluctant vampire, versus the movie where he had been a villain, and now we're kind of seeing him trying to be human. And I don't know, I don't know if that's what they were going for, but that little switcheroo,
Yeah.
I don't know, it was subtle, but it was there.
Yeah.
So.
Patrick, what did you think, man?
I thought it was magical. Let's all swipe the correct way on this one. I think the difference is that Barnabas is in his coffin for a long time. And after, a few years, he's lying there thinking to himself, oh, Josette would be like 30 by now. And 1795-30 is like, like 80 in 2023. And not a good 80, but a chain smoking 80. So, dodged a bullet. But let's say I met her again in a few times. It's make her a vampire. She doesn't age. So then there we go. All right, finally I have a plan. I can feel good about something. Yeah, okay, I can do this. So he just kind of purses his lips and shuts his eyes and waits. And we don't see that in this movie. He's just a marrying fiend. He's like Mickey Rooney. Run amok.
Yeah.
I think too with this movie, you see Barnabas. Now he was trying to be competitive with Burt Devlin for Victoria in the series. Here,
No, there are
he,
no
he just
natural predators.
he just he just completely dismisses Jeff Clark, and it's just like I love me some Roger Davis, but it's like, dude, like fight for your woman here, like
Okay,
seriously.
Jewel,
Um,
Burt Devlin is like a Tyrannosaurus Rex covered with scales, and his vision is based on movement. Jeff Clark is what the dinosaurs were actually like, sort of covered in feathers and colorful feathers, in fact, and, like like a chorus boy at the Flamingo, and sort of awkward, and that's what he said. I thought I was getting. Not even dealing with William H. Macy Jurassic Park 3. Okay, fine. I see how it is, Brad Gates. Okay, I'm just going to go after him. Roger, can you drive us on the tape? Well, I don't know.
No, I agree with you that in the series, yeah, Burt Devlin's like the Tyrannosaurus Rex. He's gonna compete for his woman.
Yeah.
With the movie, you have, there's no Burt Devlin, obviously. You have Roger Davis playing Jeff Clark, and no, not the same Jeff Clark from the series, a completely different character.
Yeah.
But I get that, look, when you have a white knight in the movie, they're supposed to be goody two shoe, and I get that, but it's okay to have. This is the 70s. You're literally right around the corner from a character called Dirty Harry, for Christ's sake. It's okay to have a little edge on a character.
Yeah.
Well, it's also okay to have feelings. Now, you get Jeff Clark and you get Burt Devlin. What about Sebastian Shaw? What would he say to Wee Maggie? He wouldn't say anything. Sebastian Shaw would have listened.
Yeah.
Jeff Clark was kind of meanie. So, I mean, in the movie, he was kind of, well, I mean, in the show, well, anyway, in the movie, he was kind of a weenie. I mean, like, he didn't get brave. He didn't get knight in shining armor till the end, when everyone else was dead, and it was just, I don't know.
He was ahead of the curve when it came to Sansa slacks, though. And he still understood the value of gold toe socks. And those are the virtues that I really look to. Poor Roger Davis. That guy could have done a lot more. He really could have. He's a good actor. But they didn't give him. I mean, he does as much as he can with that script.
Agreed.
Which I feel like everybody lost a bet. And it's like, how much of the show can we shove into, an hour and 45 minute running time?
Right.
And it's like, okay, do we have to? Yes, or everyone will die. Okay, Sam. Okay, Gordon, let's start typing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Humperdinck Alstrada makes an appearance in this movie as a doctor.
That's right.
Which is really, yeah.
Wouldn't it have been great if he had made an appearance in the movie as the villain?
Oh.
That Barnabas helped everybody team up and fight. That would have been cool. I mean, if I had made the movie, that's what I would have done. I would kids were having birthday parties centered around Dark Shadows. They had the game. They had the record. He's the ultimate anti-hero. And they had plenty of villains. So it kind of almost makes its own gravy. If I had been James Aubrey and Doug Metter at MGM, I would have been totally baffled at this film. I would have been looking at this as a franchise. I mean, what is a TV show but just a pilot with a bunch of episodes following? And it's just born to be movies after what Hammer had achieved. Even before this parachute things. So yeah. So I kind of held it in, but this really bothers me because I think the future of the franchise would have been a lot different had they looked at it with the franchise.
Yeah.
The same.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
And
It doesn't make it a bad movie. It's a fun movie. But I can't, as a real fan of the franchise, I can't help but wonder what would have been. It's like if Rob Bowman had left the 2004 pilot to go shoot a Western, and the thing had gotten sold. You know, we would have been spared Tim Burton, which maybe not a good thing. You're a big fan. But it really changed the complexion of literally of the franchise.
Yeah.
You know,
I think that's the thing too with this movie. We don't get to know who cursed Barnabas. He just says, when they put this curse on me.
Right.
It's something I focused on a lot when discussing House of Dark Shadows specifically.
well, what was his clearinghouse? He got all those magazine subscriptions, hoping Ed McMahon would show up, and nope, just a curse.
Oh Lord.
He wasn't going to be. He got that first album for a penny, but he wasn't going to pay the rest for all that money. Max didn't even like it. He would have gone with Spencer.
So I know I've asked this one before from all of you. Who do you all feel cursed Barnabas in the movie?
Dan Curtis. Anyway.
In the movie.
In the movie.
In the movie.
He's got to be a vampire. I say he's a vampire. He's a vampire.
Oh my god. That's a good question.
He's a good guy. No, who do you guys think?
I still stand by that it could have been the Leviathans, you know, from the beginning of time, there they were, I also think it could have been Judah Zachary because of his vendetta against the family. If we're going off theories from the show, it could have been the widows that jumped, it could have, I don't know. I think
kind of a hard one. I mean, because they just totally ignore it.
Yeah. They don't.
There was a line in it where that was cut. Where Willie says, "Who cursed you, Barnabas? How did it happen?" Right? Only once, Willie. Only once tipped poorly at Fantastic Sam.
That's true.
And that was it.
That's true.
So are we?
So
talking,
who was that one?
Are we talking Josette's family, maybe?
No, you're showing somebody Fantastic Sam's that he didn't tip very well after they really sharpened his sideburns and so on. That's it. That's it. No, it could have been Josette's family. We have no evidence to go on.
Yeah.
It's a very tough question to answer because there's no evidence in the movie except of they, and there's no wrong answer. Walt Disney and Henry Ford went back in time.
Yeah.
So Vampire has just as much legitimacy as saying David Kaplan did it.
I have a little crazy theory with this. Whoever did the cursing in the movie, Barnabas saw who did it, and they did it on the day, not in the chapel, mind you, but they did it the day of the wedding, before it happened. And that's what makes it probably so heartbreaking for Barnabas within the time frame of the movie, because he knows he was supposed to be married to Josette, and Josette has the same wedding. That's the one thing. She has the same wedding dress she had from the series. That's the one thing that's similar too. And it's like, okay, so I honestly think it was maybe Natalie Dupre, because something tells me Josette was a little more of a rebel without a cause, if you will, in this movie than anything else. That maybe it was more, the wedding was more supported by the Collins family and not so much supported by the Dupre family, which could be a possibility.
Yeah.
But I'll give another shout out too. You said the Leviathan. You said Judah Zachary, the Leviathans. Mutual friend Mark Gilman said the Leviathan, the cult of Judah Zachary, not Judah Zachary himself, but the cult. Which I think, again, all of that's interesting. Like we never, because we all talked about this too. There's no hint to who this is at all.
Right.
It's more of a okay. If it was going to be Angelique, I think they would have just came out and said it. But there's no hint that it was Angelique. There's no hint it was anybody. It just they put this curse on me, and that line is just like it's head twisting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great line in the movie. Like if you want, it's one of the best unsolved mysteries in the DSU. It really is.
Yeah, totally.
Oh my god!
I gotta start speaking my mind more because you said Natalie Dupre, and that kind of crossed my
There's
mind
no stupid answer.
because it would have made the most sense if they didn't mention it at all. But totally,
Right.
I agree with you.
Why would Natalie have done?
That's the thing. Like, if we don't, again, I don't think this Josette we have in the movie is the same Josette from the series. We've seen so many other characters change in the course of this movie.
Yeah.
Why not Josette? What if Barnabas took Josette from France to England, or not to England, but to Collinsport, and said, "Hey, I want you to bring my." She said yes. She was willing to do it, but her family was against the marriage. Again, marriages could be a bit funny back in the heyday of the 1700s in SOP.
I mean, even in the series, the Dupreys didn't seem all that excited about the wedding, especially Natalie.
No, I mean, you got out of France. That's great living in France. If you go to Martinique, and it's fabulous. And where are we retiring? Maine? Do you know what it gets like in the winter there? Do you know what it's like in the summer there? It's like winter.
Yeah.
In the Alps.
You know what? I kind of get that. I had a boyfriend who wanted to move to Maine, and I'm like, why?
Yeah, he lived in an era where they had, central heating.
I think.
I think it had been. Let me see. What is this going to say?
Like lobster. I don't like it that much.
True.
With the wedding in the series, it's all about financial gain for Joshua. I swear, Joshua Collins is the original Rod Tidwell before Rod Tidwell and Jerry Maguire. Show me the money.
Show me the money.
Like literally, like he's all about the money.
Here's the thing you should be about: the fact that David Ford, as Andre Dupre in 1795, looks like William Shatner now. Go look at pictures. It's breathtaking.
Yeah. Let's see. What's you guys' favorite special effect in the movie compared to the series?
The blood.
The gore.
The blood.
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah. No, it was superior compared to.
I was like, burn them and show it.
It's like that first bite that we see in the movie. You're like, whoa, because we're used to just the two little pinholes in the neck. This was pinhole and ripped neck and blood streaming out of it.
That blood squirting when Carolyn was stabbed.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
That's what we need. Kill him.
Yeah, man.
The blood.
Yeah.
That is the life.
Minus the blood.
What's your favorite special effect?
Honestly, my favorite special effect is, corny as this is gonna sound, is the brief little wind we get in this movie. It's not much. And there's a cemetery scene where how they have the chain coffin and the way they shoot. It's not really a special effect, but I guess if I had to pick one special effect, how they do Carolyn coming back from the grave, and how they have her in this white dress, and it's just like, and the fact the vampire teeth in this movie I'll count as an effect, And how the vampire teeth looked in the movie compared to the series, I thought was really well done.
Yeah.
I agree.
Like it,
Definitely.
that's a lot of fun. That's the one thing too. Like Jonathan Fred he didn't like putting the vampire teeth in. He's talked about that in old interviews that he did. And I like how the teeth looked in the movie. I think that, again, it's a movie. You're getting more money. Of course, it's going to look better than it does in a series. But I think it just looked. Again, I love the teeth in the series too. But I love comparing them to the series and how they both look different. So.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I would say it's not a special effect by any means, but kind of in the same ballpark. I would say I loved the detail of both the houses, of the grounds, of the town. I loved getting to see more of Collinwood and getting to see more of Collinsport. You know,
Now-
we don't really get Blue Whale's bar, but it's, you know.
Yeah, but getting to
restaurant of
actually
sorts.
see the mansion as a mansion
Yeah.
and not just like a tiny
A set.
set,
Yeah.
that was very cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it just gets you more in the mood and in the feeling.
Kind of brags on the Collinses a little bit.
Yeah.
Brags on their wealth a little bit. And I kind of, and the old house too, you know, because the old house we were told was a mansion too. It was just an older mansion. But in the series, I personally never really got the feel of the mansion. In the show, the old house, or the movie, the old house was a mansion too.
Yeah.
You know, and that was very evident, you know, and
Mhm.
not a special effect, but I did like it.
Yeah.
Yes.
What in the? He's gone again.
Bye.
What happened? But with the Patrick, you there?
Yes, I may have reached the end of my technological capabilities here in the midst of somewhere on I-40.
Oh, you poor thing. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I'm near Kingston.
Oh,
So our chief engineer is gonna try and erect a makeshift solar sail, and with that we hope to get back to Earth. So I know I said solar. By the way, you said Seymour of Collinsport. Seymour's of Collinsport was the major lingerie supplier. It was right across the street from Brewster's, and Mrs. Johnson got her finest burlap Merry Widow there. Yeah. It almost made Bill Malloy forget that she wasn't Joe. But I have theories. But all seriousness aside, I'm coming up with an idea for a Mrs. Johnson board game, and then I gotta go. It's like the Barnabas Collins game. Stop me if you've heard this before. It's like the Barnabas Collins game, except you're not trying to put together a skeleton. You're going around Collinwood getting all of her little bottles of booze to put back in the liquor cabinet before Roger comes home.
Oh my god. No,
Sarah
I've
Johnson. I'm working on it right now.
I would purchase that board game in a heartbeat.
Yes.
I appreciate that. Hey, listen, gang, I gotta go. I may reappear later. Shop smart, shop smart.
Patrick.
Bye.
Bye, Patrick.
He's crazy. I love you.
Oh
my gosh.
Patrick, we love you, buddy. Really, I think with the movie too, Dan Curtis. This is not Dan Curtis's first movie. That would be Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, while Jonathan was being cast. And so, but this is House of Dark Shadows is the first Dark Shadows movie out of 3. Dan Curtis directs 2 out of 3. So let's throw a hypothetical out there. If Dan Curtis would have got to do a third Dark Shadows movie, what do you think it would have been about?
Well,
I think he would have time traveled because Dan Curtis was fascinated by time travel. or at least that is my hope, because I love time travel also. But I think that he would have picked one of the eras, probably 1975 or 1795. That would be my guess. And my hope or my thought is that we would maybe get a little more info on Barnabas's family and see how they grew up, see how, Joshua was to them as children. I kind of think, I think time travel would have definitely been involved,
Yeah, I kind of started to go there too, which way like you said, I think it would make the most sense to do a period piece.
Yeah. After doing two
with the family history.
Here. Yeah. After doing House of Dark Shadows on the main story, and then
if we're going off of those storylines, Barnabas is dead.
Right.
So we can't really go back.
That was the gateway to
or we can't go forward with Barnabas anymore. So we could go back.
Right.
I mean,
I don't know. It seems totally.
As far as storylines go, I would love to see them go all the way back to when the Collinses were living overseas, where all this started.
Yeah.
Like,
see how
see Angelique, see the affair between Barney and Angelique.
Yeah.
Like that type of era. I would have loved to seen that.
I would like some answer. I know we discussed this time we chatted, but I would like to see how the Collinses became so cursed. I mean, was it the grounds? What did it start before that? Or, I mean, I would have liked to have seen that, but
yeah.
I don't know. I kind of think we probably would have time traveled.
Yeah.
Where is up for discussion, up for speculation, but I definitely think he would have time traveled. So.
Yeah, I'm with you both on this. I think time travel would have been the way to go. And if Dan Curtis would have did 1795 as a movie, I think we'd all been pissing our pants.
Totally.
But I think it'd have been 10 times more terrifying than what we got in the series.
Agreed.
I can only imagine.
I totally would have been here for it too.
Imagine that Reverend Trash. Come on.
It would have been more freaky than he was in the 1991 series.
All the way up to the hanging.
Yeah.
For you winter. Yeah. That would have been incredible.
I don't know. I would have loved to have seen something, and I still would love to see something like that in the right hands, y'all. Come on.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that would be
and with like great. Hollywood production type level of production, like I would have loved to have seen how the seances and like how that switch would have happened. That rift in time right there. Like I would have loved to have seen.
Agreed.
Great production.
Or Quentin's staircase would have been cool too. I would have loved to have seen a modern production of.
Yeah. That would have been cool.
Or I Ching, I would love to see that too. I mean, I don't know. There's so much they could be doing with this. The fan base is there, y'all.
Yeah.
Barnabas and Martinique meeting Angelique.
Yes.
And that's the thing. I could see Barnabas like going up to like a tribal chief in like Martinique and like I would like to compete for her.
Yes.
Because and the Angelique calls him crazy. They'll kill you if you don't win. You realize this, right? That they'll end your life.
Right.
It's worth it.
But maybe she helps him.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not completely out of her ballpark, and I mean, in the Tim Burton film, they portrayed it like Angelique and Barnabas had known each other all their lives,
right.
But I don't think that's true. I think they met in Martinique. I think it was something that, it was maybe a moment of weakness for Barnabas because maybe he was grieving Josette because he wasn't sure he was ever going to see her again. Wasn't sure how she felt. Wasn't sure how he felt. I think it's a classic love triangle story. I really do. I don't think they knew each other all their lives. I
like to think like in any arranged marriage, I can imagine there's always that uninterest and doubt. And I kind of think that could have been the night.
That could have been also
him and Angelique's night. Like it was just, I mean, they could have had a big fight. Like, I don't want to marry you. I don't want this. Our parents want this and this and this.
Yeah.
Like, it was just that moment of the arrangement that they both hate. And I can imagine they all hate that are in that situation.
I think that Josette and Angelique knew each other from childhood. But I don't think that Barnabas and Angelique knew each other from childhood.
But in the series, it sounded like Angelique had always been there as her handmaid.
Right. Because
Not the other way
Angelique's
around.
mother was
That's right. Natalie's.
was
Yeah.
Natalie's handmaid.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Bunny trail, but there it is.
All the shoulda, coulda, wouldas.
Exactly.
It's like, but yeah.
I think there's too a natural attraction between Barnabas and Angelique. Whenever he first saw her in Martinique, he fell for her instantly. There was something about her that drew him to her in a main way. Not meaning a spell, mind you, but just a natural
attraction.
And I think by then it's just too late. He was already moved, and it's just too late. That makes it more attractive than him and or Josette would ever be.
I agree. I definitely think. I mean, Josette and Barnabas were absolutely tragic love story. But I think the tragedy between Barnabas and Angelique was more. I think it was greater. I think it hit me a lot harder. Like, I was sad when Josette fell. She didn't jump. Fell off of Widow's Hill. I think that really, it hurt and it made me cry. But the tragedy between Barnabas and Angelique at the end, game over. It was over for me. It was so.
I mean, I kind of think that said it all.
Yeah.
That very last scene, I think it said it all.
Yeah. But I think way more tragic than Barnabas and Josette.
Yeah. Barnabas has had a lot of bad luck with it.
Yeah.
I can't think of a successful relationship.
It wasn't the curse Angelique put on it. Like, nobody's ever gonna love you.
Yeah.
I think that's just a tragedy his life is, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, and by the end of 1840, did Barnabas sort of put this curse on himself? Was it self-inflicted in every way?
Yeah.
From just a mental standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's completely a possibility.
Yeah.
In some twisted way. I mean, but I have no more questions for you both.
No,
is there anything you want to add before we go?
When are we coming back?
Whenever you want.
What are we talking about?
Yeah, what are we talking about next?
Let's talk
Yes,
about
we have a weekly engagement rule.
Let's talk about werewolves. Let's talk about not only Quentin, but let's talk about some werewolf movies like the original Wolfman, The Howling, The American Werewolf in London. And what's your favorite werewolf movie? How would you retell Quentin's story? Think about that for next weekend.
Okay, done.
Got it.
So is next Saturday good, ladies?
Yes.
Okay.
Everybody stays well. And
same bat time, same bat channel.
Love it.
If you don't hear from me, it's because my wife has disposed of me properly. Okay.
Good girl.
Love you, honey. But Julie was watching House of Dark Shadows with me. She goes, if I'm Maggie, and that Jeff Clark fella just totally brushes me off, I'm saying to hell with him.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is the woman I married.
Exactly.
I need my wife to go talk to the fictional characters of Dark Shadows, like, because my wife would just read, like, look, she wants you, so you go with her, okay? Oh my God. Oh, goodness. But links between the Shadows of Dark Shadows podcast is going to be in the description box for their channel and their Facebook page. Go check out Christine Pierce on Twitter at Lady Mongoose. Cara Tillitz, I don't care 13. And no, we're not changing the Twitter handles. Just get over it. For our buddy Patrick McCray, links to Dark Shadows Day book, Unbound. The audio will be in the description box. You can check him out at Real McCray on Twitter. Go check them all out. And first of all, to Patrick, thank you, ladies. Thank you so much for tonight's festivities. This is fun.
Yes, love it.
Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.